So today we're working on a 40-foot snorkel lift, and it's got oil running out of the belly of it, and we crawled underneath of it to see what's going on, and the steering cylinder that steers these two front tires is leaking all over the place, and it's down inside this little hole, and there's another little hole up from the bottom. So we got to get the hoses off of it and get it up out of there, and we're going to get her inside and tear it apart and see what it's going to take to fix it. So we took the pin out. This is the front pin right here, held in with a bolt on the top, and this was the back pin with an 1 1/8" hex on the top, 3/4 on the bottom. To pull the two pins out, then we collapsed the cylinder, squeezed all the oil out, and we caught it in our waste pan down bottom, because it's all leaking right out of the shaft. All the oil is leaking right out of the shaft. So we'll get it in there and get it all tore apart. So we give it a quick bath. Everything works better when it's clean. I don't care what you're working on. If you get it cleaned up before you tear it apart, it always makes life a lot easier on you. So with this particular cylinder here, with this head gland being cleaned up, we can see there's one set screw right there holding the head gland on. We'll roll it around here and look. Yep, that's the only one. So we're going to take that and take that loose. That set screw, pull that set screw out of there. And then all of the holes here, we're going to clean these all out with a screwdriver, so when we put our spanner wrench in there, we don't have a problem with it. Sometimes when you clean your cylinder, it doesn't get all the way down in those spanner holes like that. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our head gland, and we're going to tap all the way around our head gland to free that up, just because it always works better when you shake it loose. Now we're going to go over there and we're going to use one of two tools. This one here fits it really good. These like this fit it really good. So between the two of them, we'll find one and we'll chuck her up in the vise over there and put my little crutch under it, and we'll pull that head gland off of there. We've already drained the oil out. There's no oil left in it, so we're not going to make a mess on the floor. When you clean it, drain the oil out. Make sure it's empty so it doesn't make a mess. Nothing worse than cleaning up a mess. We'll try this one first and see how it does. Oh, shoot, that wasn't bad at all. That's tapping on that head gland. I'm telling you, it really helps you a lot. When you tap on that head gland and free that up, that really does help you a lot. The other day I had a guy up here and he had a cylinder like this that come off of a skid loader of some kind, and it was the same style where it pushes this gland inside of the barrel, and we could not get it freed for nothing because it was so tight that. So what I eventually did was I took it out there and I put some hydraulic quick couple fittings on here. I put the cylinder all the way out. I screwed the head gland on all but just to the point where it would move about 1/8 of an inch, and I started putting a little bit of hydraulic pressure on there until it pushed this head gland out. I never seen one rusted in there that bad, but we prevailed. By the time it was all said and done, we prevailed. But this one here, now that I've got it loose, I'm just going to grab a hold of that rod and try to pull out on it and see if it'll, with the piston hitting it, if it'll shake itself loose, which I'm sure that it probably will. Most generally, they're not all rusted in there, unless it come off of something that was, you know, in a bad way. See how nice and easy that come out? So we'll go ahead and pull it out of there. Give her another little love tap. Put that under my barrel. We'll take this rod over on the workbench and we'll show you what's going on with it next. So now that we've got the rod out of the barrel, I was just looking at the head gland right here, and you can see that the backup ring, let me get my little screwdriver here. That backup ring has just completely deteriorated to nothing. Wow, look at that. Look how brittle that is. That's just age. Man, oh man. That's just age. So, anyhow, you know everything in here is going to be junk. They put a Allen or a cotter key here in the end. We'll get that cotter key out of there. A lot of these JLG and these lift companies that build these different types of stuff, they are pretty friendly as far as field service goes, because they know that sooner or later somebody out in the field is going to have to take them apart, and they usually don't put the head glands on that tight. They're usually fairly friendly for a person that's out in the field to have to deal with them. That's what I found anyhow. And actually, I found that when you buy OEM kits for the cylinders, they're fairly reasonable, because why, I don't know, but they're usually fairly reasonable. So this is an 1.5 inch socket. See if we can rattle him off. Pull the piston off of there. Now if you look, you'll see that there's an O-ring right in the middle of the shaft that seals up between that piston and that shaft right there. So we're going to take that O-ring off. Boy, you could tell it's pretty brittle though. Then we'll pull the head gland off like that. Look at a wiper and a head gland. It just shatters. Look at it. It doesn't get much more brittle than that, does it? See if I can get a big old pick in there and get a piece of him. Oh, yeah. It's just going to come out in total pieces. Yeehaw, total pieces. I don't know how old that man lift is. I know it's old. I've had it for 20 some years, and it was probably 20 some years old when I bought it, so it's not as old as I am, but it's getting up there. Look how brittle that U-cup is. Wow. I've rebuilt, I don't know how many cylinders on it already. The boom cylinder, the basket tilt cylinder, hoses. Every time I turn around, that thing is biting me and I have to go work on it, but it is pretty handy to have. So the backup ring's completely gone. The O-ring don't seem too bad, but the backup ring, there's nothing left of it. And then the piston seals. So both of these are your piston seals. And actually, they're not breaking in half, so yeah, they are. They're pretty brittle. Look at them. So basically, it's a huge U-cup. You see the rubber seal inside of the U-cup. So basically, that's just a big U-cup. You got one U-cup facing one way, one U-cup facing the other way. That's really all they are. It's just a great big U-cup. You take the rubber seal out of the inside of it, and you can see why they call it a U-cup. So when the pressure gets behind it, it pushes it out, and you got them both facing back to back like this. So piston and everything looks good, the rod looks good, the head gland looks good. Only thing we need is some cylinder packing, and we'll get that, and we'll get this thing put back together again, and we'll put it back in. So we've got all our new parts here, and now we're going to put this thing back together again. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put this little O-ring on the end of this shaft right here in this groove where it belongs. Get it down on there and spin it a few times, make sure it's not twisted. Next we'll go to the head gland and make sure the groove is clean where the U-cup goes in. I like to start in the middle and work my way out. So here's our U-cup, and oh my goodness, is it stiff. Look at that. Whoo boy. So we're going to have to get a U-cup tool to put that in with. U-cup tool. And remember that the U-shape, the open part, always goes down, so when pressure hits that, it swells it out against the outside edge. Sometimes if you don't have a U-cup tool and you get a real stiff U-cup like that, it's going to be a booger to try to put it in there. So remember that the open part goes down. We'll wind him up. Oh, that's a stiff one. So the U-cup is in. Next is the dust wiper. It just sits in recessed area there in the head gland. And then work your finger around it to make sure that it's seated all the way around in that head gland like that. Next we have a backup ring and then an O-ring. Backup ring goes on first, then the O-ring, and then spin them a little bit to make sure that they're not twisted, just like that. So that's your head gland. Now this had U-cups on the piston, but I didn't buy U-cups this time. I bought a regular two-piece piston seal with an expander that goes underneath of it. So the expander goes on first, this one goes on second. And sometimes if they're really stiff, you'll have to take and warm them up with a heat gun. This one's not too terrible bad once I get it centered up on there. And then spin it with your hands to make sure that it's on there nice and straight, just like that. So another one on the other side. Expander goes on first, piston seal goes on second. Get it all centered up on there. spin it and make sure it's straight. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to lube our head gland and slide our head gland on there, and then we'll bolt our piston on, and then we'll be ready to put it back in a barrel. Puts plenty of lube in there. Always lubricate that O-ring on the outside too. Just like that. And there she goes, right down in place where she belongs. We'll lubricate this O-ring here. Set our piston on there. I'm going to get a little Loctite. It's a self-locking nut, but I'm still going to put some Loctite on it. Okay. Put a new cotter key in the hole. And now we're going to lube up the piston seals, and we're going to go over here and put it together. So I like to lubricate this taper right here also. Anything that makes it easier. I get a little hammer. Sometimes you have to tap on them a little bit. Screw on our flange all the way down tight. Once you get it down tight, remember we had a set screw that went right into that, locked that collar down. Now, the only thing left now is putting it back in the machine. Worst part of this is getting it down in this hole and getting this front end of this pinned in there. Boy, I tell you, tight little rascal down in that hole. So we uncapped the lines and hooked the cylinder up, got the hoses put on, cylinder's bolted down. So now, put this cover on here, and then we're going to fire it up, check it for leaks, and see how it works. and dry under there now. We swing them right, swing them left, get all the air out of the cylinder. She's ready to go to work. So I hope you liked the video, and thanks for watching.